Hello everyone, my name is Adam, or EposVox, and I have a lot of opinions about the games journalism industry and just area of discussion that I don't always share and that I keep to myself. And just when I didn't think I was going to make any videos today and it was time to relax, I see a video go up from Lagundo from Legend Zero Nation. It's titled "Game Journalism is Biased, and There's Nothing They Can Do About It." The video itself is actually addressing some controversy surrounding The Sims 4, in which apparently EA is not giving out early access copies of Sims 4 to reviewers to review. This is typically the standard in games journalism and is expected of publishers to do so. That way, games journalism publishing outlets can get reviews out on launch day to ideally help direct customer sales in the right direction, but primarily to just get the games more sales and to make the more ad revenue on the publishing outlets. Now, the response to this has of course been terrible, but that's not something I entirely agree with. Now, I'll be responding to this video as well as taking my own direction in the conversation, as I believe there's a couple important conversations to be had here that we're only just now getting to for some strange reason. For the most part, I do agree with Lagundo's stance, but there's one part of it I actually disagree with that I'll address in just a couple minutes. So, a few notes about games journalism on the whole. Pretty much everything about games journalism is actually considered pretty much unethical, inappropriate, or just plain out wrong to the overall journalistic community and ethical code. These things include special treatment of journalists, being flown out to events for special access to this or that, being given gifts, especially being given free copies of games, nevertheless early access to copies of games, or insider information, things like that. This immediately throws up huge red flags to normal journalists. In fact, as a non-gaming journalist, if you're given free gifts, your employers would simply not let you review whatever you were given, or in most cases even keep it, as that, gives you bias, that applies bias or influence over your journalistic integrity, which causes you to lose that. People literally lose their jobs in the regular journalism industry over this. And it was kind of funny, I took my senior seminar ethics in journalism course last semester, and I brought up some of the things that is considered standard or normal in the games media industry, just as hypotheticals, not saying where it was from or where I was coming up with this. And the professor was pretty much appalled at everything I came up with. Free copies of games being accepted as a standard, early access to events and stuff, all of that is considered terrible. And yet, this is how the entire games journalism system is structured, and that's probably not going to change. Now, this is due to the high costs of reviewing so much on such a frequent level. There are games released pretty much every week, and games media outlets need to be able to cover all of them. The games cost $60 a pop, and nobody can afford to go buy that many games, as well as the democratization of media on the whole. Now there's more everyday people as critics, and so you can't just have only companies with a lot of money going and buying games. Everybody's reviewing it, so even Schmo Joe, who works a 9 to 5, is still also working at this publishing outlet, and so a lot of people who couldn't normally afford games now need them for review. And frankly, it's been this way since the beginning. As Lagundo pointed out in his video, he said, games journalism doesn't have a choice. And while one could argue one way or the other on that, that's for the most part pretty true. Like I said, it's been that way from the beginning. Games journalism doesn't really have much of a choice of being as in bed so much with the publishers as it is. However, we do have ways in which we can affect how much power or influence that has over us. Now, the part that I disagree with, not only from him, but I've seen it all over the Reddit posts about this Sims 4 controversy as well. The basic gist is EA/Maxis/whatever must have so little faith in their game to not allow reviewers early access copies. They seem to assume, they immediately assume that by not providing early copies of the game, they're basically trying to trick pre-order people or just people in general to buy their game on launch. Honestly, I would say in most cases, although not specifically in the case of Sims 4 or EA. However, I don't address things about EA a lot because everybody just wants to hate on EA. To me, that would be a sign of having faith, not of not having faith. With how completely easy it is to just outright fool the public about a game through bot or biased early copy, day zero, and launch day reviews, which I will be addressing in a second, if a company is concerned that their game might not do well, they simply just need to open their doors wide to journalists and give them special treatment, fly them out to events, as is kind of considered regular, and just blind them to how bad their game is, rather than hide it, because hiding it draws that negative, unwanted attention, as seen here. To me, that assumption of it being required is nothing but bad for the industry. There's way too much focus nowadays on day one or launch day game purchases and pre-release information and hype. As PC games journalist Total Biscuit regularly argues, this focus on day one is pretty absurd and only harms the consumer in the end. Effects such as on-disc costly DLC being added into games, game experiences being limited without special pre-order bonuses for pre-ordering the game, and more are shining examples of the problems this causes for consumers on pretty much every game's release day. It's a goldmine for publishers. It's the bane of any non-upper-class gamer. It's the perfect hype train for new games. It's also pure manipulation. My argument is that if we make a push to focus less and less on day one purchases and reviews, it will be hugely beneficial for both the games journalism industry as well as the consumer. A big issue is the complete lack of integrity. This focus on day one purchases has also created this biased system with no integrity, in which publishers buy out game reviewers and publishing outlets left and right by providing them early copies of the games, and in some cases even withholding future game releases if negative reviews are published. It has created a society where people are used to looking for game reviews before the game is even out and expecting it. And some journalists' jobs are completely dependent on getting a review out before the other guy. The people that fall into this are the masses. They are the gamers who are fooled by the industry or who simply have enough money to not really care. The smart gamers typically wait a little bit to get the game. Most AAA games these days need a pretty large patch within the first couple of weeks to get the game actually running in the first place. Waiting also allows the dust to settle on bought-out reviews, and the honest reviews start to surface. There's also an issue of the value of the reviews. Despite the fact that a huge portion of the entire industry has come to develop around this concept, the truth is, pre-release or launch day reviews are completely worthless in most cases. All these reviews do is just serve the publisher's hype train for the game and provide free PR for their product. All these reviews do is give gamers already buying the game or looking to buy the game, or who have already made a pre-order or looking to pre-order, another voice telling them, yes, go buy it. Rarely is anything negative brought up, and when it is, it's often danced around and then just flooded with more positive things. Any sort of actual critique or critical thinking is pretty much non-existent. Granted, any critically thinking reader can sift through the bullshittery that is pre-release or launch day reviews and pick out bits of information that can inform them to some degree as to which buying decision to make. But frankly, raw gameplay footage from games serves a better decision-making influence on launch than early access reviews do. This also isn't effective in the long run. Having worked, briefly, for a couple of other gaming news outlets outside of my own website, it's pretty obvious that most publishing outlets' concerns and focus are on day one reviews and news. If you don't get news within a certain time frame of somebody else publishing it, why bother? Multiple times was I or another staff writer told there was no point in reviewing game X, Y, or Z because the initial launch day view surge had already passed and they would just have to wait on trickled search traffic to have any hits on the review. But honestly, those are the hits that matter. Sure, they make a tad bit less money, but who cares? I will always take a late review over no review any day. A post-launch review almost always guarantees that the proper time and efforts were put in to ensure that the review was done properly, and with as little bias as possible. Hell, I'd take reviews of any games from any generation on my website, as long as they were well written. Hello. The thing is, when someone is looking for reviews on games after they've been released, they don't get their information from pre-release or launch day reviews. No, it's the post-launch reviews that were done right with the proper level of critique that provide any value to consumers. Unfortunately nowadays, everything is about the money. Looking at it from the outside, the immense focus on launch day is actually pretty illogical. It hurts the consumer, it violates journalistic integrity, and it provides no value at all. The only reason it's really done is for the money. If we pushed to move the focus off of day one sales and reviews for games, things would be a lot better. We would have a sharp increase in journalistic integrity regarding game reviews, ideally. There would be more valuable reviews, as the reviews would be based on actual gameplay experiences and not just simply who gave you early access to the game, which would then give you better buying decision options for the consumer. It would also push away from day zero DLC and all that bullshittery. It would ideally even push away from pre-order bonuses being actual in-game content. They would be more physical and fun pre-order bonuses. Frankly, the in-game content pre-order bonuses still make me mad to this day whenever a game does it, which is pretty common. Consumers would also save money. Think about Steam sales. Games get to go on sale because they've been out for a while. That means better buying decisions and saving money for the consumer. Sales. Think about the Steam sales. If you wait and don't buy a game day one, even if you wait 2 weeks, you can end up saving at least 10 or 20 bucks off the top of a game title. But some things are in our way, especially for the sales aspect. We would have to pretty much completely eliminate the corporate used game market. Mom and pop shops would still be able to handle it, but as far as like GameStop goes, that would have to be eliminated. No money from used games goes to the developers nor publishers for used games. Therefore, their focus would still stay on launch day sales and pre-orders. That's where their money actually comes from. It also prevents games from going on sale, costing users money. Because developers and publishers don't get money for used game sales, the only money that they get are from launch day sales. The games pretty much stay at $60. And so that's the only reason people buy used games, is because they can't really afford to buy new games because they're still $60. We would also have to show a pretty firm stand against the core game content being used as on-disc DLC or quick DLC or pre-order bonuses. So, these are my thoughts on why these kinds of things are a problem, why we need to focus on pushing away from launch day significance at all and more on integrity. What will you do about this? What are your thoughts? Sorry, this was a bit of a longer rant. Like I said, I do have a lot of opinions regarding games journalism, and I want to share them with you guys. However, if you care at all about the games media landscape, these types of conversations should be pretty important to you.
Thanks for watching Epos and Chew. Let's play together. If you enjoyed the video, consider clicking on the screen to contribute to our Patreon campaign. To watch another video, click on one of the video annotations on the screen above. Links are also provided to our website, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. See you next time.